I did a thing. I started writing a book. Hi friends, Happy New Year. So happy to be back. I didn't really do an end of year wrap up because I figured we're just gonna keep going with the vibes we ended off with last year. I missed y'all so much. We had a little bit of a break. My camera broke when I was traveling. I tried to film a few videos on my phone and they came out looking shitty. I just couldn't bring myself to post videos that just weren't to this quality after having this quality for so long. This still isn't even the peak of the quality I want to have, but I just couldn't go below this, you feel me? So had to take a little break. We're back, we're good, we're here. And it's New Year, so Happy New Year. So I did a thing. I am writing a book. Those little hints I was throwing out here and there throughout the last year during my videos of the project I was working on was my first book. Ooh, first, period. I didn't even realize I was gonna say that, but period. I knew that I wanted to write more. I spoke about it at the end of last year's kind of like recap, and I feel like the year before too, because I went back into my notes and I started drafting for this book 2 years ago actually, and I just didn't, I don't know, spend a lot of time planning, chapter outlines, all that stuff, planning for it. But I didn't start writing it until this year, and I had a word count goal because the genre of the book, fiction, romance, on average the word count is 90,000 to 120,000. So I set my word goal for 90,000, not even thinking I would hit that. And I ended up hitting it on December 31st. So thank you. And it's just crazy. Like I really am writing a book, and I didn't think I would even hit 90K. I thought it'd be less because I was playing with different ideas, and I was like, okay, maybe there'll be short stories, maybe it'll just be like little pieces for my Substack, which if you're not following it, you should go and follow it there. I'll link it here because I am writing there, not similar to what I'm writing in my book, but kind of closer to like journal entries, a little more fiction, more reflective writing. It's happening over there, so follow my Substack. But yeah, going into it, I was writing and I was like, we'll just see where it goes, and I thought the story would be done by 90,000 words. Turns out it is not, and I have more story to write, so that's what I'll continue to do. But I feel like I'll be finished with the first draft fully probably by the end of this month, which is just crazy to say because I just didn't think I'd be writing a book, but or maybe I did, you know? Maybe I did. I don't know, doubted myself for a while, but it's happening and I'm really excited about it. It's just been really fun to just be creating and not really knowing where it's leading to or like what's gonna happen once I even finish this draft, but it's just been a fun project for me that I'm slowly starting to fall in love with. So yeah, I'll show you guys. I hit my 90 word count here, and I am gonna take you guys through the process of what I just went through throughout this last year. So for those of you who haven't followed me for a little bit now, you do know that reading has been a really big part of my life since forever. It's kind of been my escape. It's been my friend. I would definitely characterize myself as a bibliophile. I love reading, I love books, I love just getting lost in the stories and ultimately the minds of authors who created these worlds and create these characters who feel so real. I really wanted to try my hand at creating a story and creating characters that could elicit the same emotions and feelings from me that the books of other authors have made me feel as well. And I was surprised and very excited to experience that happening throughout the process. Like I was feeling like excited for my characters or worried or annoyed or kind of just like a range of emotion as if they were real people. And I feel like that was definitely a motivating factor for me to keep going because if it felt that real as I'm writing it, and it felt as if I was reading a story that like outside of me actually writing it, then I'm on the right track at least. I started to look for where I wanted to write the book at in terms of what platform I wanted to use. And there are a couple other platforms. It was Scrivener. I saw people writing on Microsoft Word, but I haven't used Word in a very long time, so I just didn't really want to do that. And I also didn't want to pay for a platform just yet because I wasn't sure where I was going with this. And Scrivener is a paid platform. So I ended up stumbling upon Reedsy, which is a free platform. And it's cool because it's really good for writers, yes, but it also connects you with editors, it connects you with beta readers. It kind of feels like a LinkedIn for writers type vibe. Not quite, but similar in terms of the connection aspect. So I thought that was cool and it was free. So I was like, let's just do it there. And I had an overall good experience with it. There's a lot of different tools to help you break down like your characters, their arcs. You can create different storyboards. There's different breakdowns for world building if you're writing a fantasy novel. I'm not doing a fantasy novel, but they do have really great breakdowns, boards for that, prompts for that, just to help make the process of you writing and building out such an elaborate world easier and to just help you better flesh out your ideas. So that's really useful if you're writing in that space, but I am not. What I did use was the character breakdowns to help me understand my characters, their motives, their connections with one another, and to keep track as I introduce each character, because I noticed I'd be writing, and because on the platform it's broken down into chapters, which I'll show you, I can be writing chapter 5, and then once I finish chapter 5, a new folder pops up, going to chapter 6, blah, blah, blah. But you know, sometimes I would take breaks or whatever the case may be. I could forget what that character's name was. If it was a side character, I'd forget who it was, or I'd forget what their connection was to this person. And so it was nice to have a list or a separate section for my character build up or breakdown of who each character was when they're introduced and what their connection is to whoever they're in the scene with. So that was really helpful. So I did enjoy that. Definitely my favorite tool was the goal and insights tab, and it helped me track my overall word count goal. And I can also break into smaller goals if I want to. And then it has like bars that show you if you're hitting that goal each day. So it's just really good. Keep me accountable, keep me on track, and just keep me focused on what my goal is as I'm writing. So I really enjoyed that tool. When I started writing, I would write after work, but then I started getting really tired after work. I was going through some stuff, so it was just not becoming as consistent. And I eventually kind of hit like a writing slump and didn't write for maybe like a month or two. And then when I got back into it again, I was like going through it with fresh eyes. And at that point I had to hit maybe 40,000 words. And so almost halfway through, and I noticed that the direction it was going didn't actually make sense for where the plot was taking itself. Like, you have your idea of what you're writing, you have like your chapter breakdown, but sometimes the story kind of takes on a mind of its own. That's what was happening. And so a lot of what I had written wasn't really working for me anymore. And I was like, oh shit, like, do I have to delete all of this? Like, is none of this even worth it? So had a few panic attacks and was like, you know what, fuck it. And just cut out like 20, maybe 15,000 words. Created a new book folder in Readsy, kept the initial one in its folder and started a new one, and was like down 15, 20,000 words from the first one, just because this is what was making sense now, and just went from there. So I just started writing from there again, and it was just making more sense. So it was hard to let go of that chunk, but I'm glad I did, because it made things flow in the way that the story wanted to flow. People always say like your first draft is supposed to be shit. Like, it's not going to be great. It's not going to make sense. It's going to be obviously your weakest version of your story, because it's just you getting the words onto the paper. So you shouldn't be focusing on revising and editing too much. But the way my brain works, I need it to at least make sense when I'm writing it, or I won't have a direction where I'm going, and nothing will happen. Like, I'll just end up hitting a block. It just won't work. So I needed for it to at least make some type of general sense, so that I had an end goal for the story was going, because at that point, what I initially thought wasn't happening anymore. So I just needed it to make sense up until that point, which is why I went back and like chopped some and came back and created my new folder and started writing from that point. So I tried not to make it a habit to go back too much, because I would end up on a first draft forever, but it is easier said than done. It is definitely was for me. I started my chapter outline last year, and that took a really long time, but I'm glad that I sat down and did it, because it made the writing process a lot smoother than it could have been. I broke down my main characters. I went through each chapter and kind of wrote down exactly what scenes were happening in each chapter. So when I had to go sit down to write, I knew exactly where to start, where I left off, things like that. So it just made it a lot smoother for me. So I started off with a chapter outline, and then once I finished that, after months and months of doing that, I had bullet points for what was happening scene-wise in the chapter. I would copy the bullet points into the folder for that chapter on Readsy, and then write the scene out. Or each chapter was about 3,000 words maybe, unless it was like a part 1, part 2 chapter, because it is dual POV, the novel. So if it was 2 parts, the word count would vary, but I didn't stick to that too much, but I tried to hit around that range so that I wouldn't get to the end and realize that, oh, this chapter only has 2 pages and this one has 25. You know what I mean? So I tried to keep it balanced in that sense, but allowed the story or whatever wanted to come out without too much restriction. So I was writing at night for like the first half of the year. Then I had my little like writing slump break. I got back into it. But then around my birthday, I realized the nighttime writing just wasn't really working for me anymore. I was, one, going out a lot more. Like, still tired from work. I was kind of like not in the best headspace. So I would come home and just want to decompress and like detach from everything. I didn't really want to do anything. I had just finished my reread of All About Love by Bell Hooks. And she was talking in the book about how she was married, had kids, but she would wake up at like the ass crack of dawn to get her writing done, because that's what made her feel good. And that was something she could do for herself and show herself love in that way. And I was like, not comparing myself to Bell Hooks, but just saying, if a woman with a husband, with kids, with a job, and the stresses of life, especially in her time, could wake up earlier before work and before having to give herself to those around her to make time for herself, can do that, then me, someone with no kids, who's not married, who has a job that I actually enjoy, you know what I mean? I can wake up a little earlier, sacrifice, but take that extra time in the morning to be intentional with this time and pour into me in that way, and something that makes me feel good and something that's for the betterment of me in my future. Do that before I kind of like open myself, my energy up to people and everything else around me. Then why wouldn't I do it? So I started doing that. And so for the last 2 months, I was doing that almost every day until I got to Grenada and was traveling, all that stuff. But I was doing that almost every day, even on weekends. So I was very proud of myself for that. It felt so good. Like, it felt so good waking up, house was quiet, it's still dark outside. I would put like one light on and I would just write. I would get up around like 6:15, and by 7:45, I had hit my word count for the day. So I would go into each day feeling accomplished, fulfilled, proud, and just grateful that I was able to create something that day. And it was a feeling that helped me get to a better space after not feeling the greatest for a while. And I'm just very, very grateful for that. Like, not only was I super proud of that, it also just felt really good not feeling guilty for not creating that day, or feeling guilty because I wanted to accomplish something and feeling like, oh, because I'm not hitting the count that I want to hit, like I'm disappointing myself, which I know isn't the healthiest, but you guys know I'm a little bit of perfectionist, a little bit of controlling when it comes to myself. So it was definitely the right plan of action for me, getting up earlier and doing it then. And also I feel like I had so much more day ahead of me, which was really nice too. So who would have thought being a morning person is the key to life? Apparently every successful person ever, but now I'm on the bandwagon. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to have my first draft finished. Probably by the end of this month is what it's looking like, and then I can take a few weeks break from the story completely, take a step away from it, work on other pieces for Substack, or just do more vlogs, stuff like that. Just take a breather from it and then come back to it with fresh eyes and start my first round of revisions. So I'm excited. So yeah, that's a really big update for me. I feel like I ended last year with a really good setup for myself, and I kind of just want to continue on that path. So that's just what I'm gonna do. It just feels like a lot less pressure and a lot more flow, which we all know I love that. So I'm leaning into that right now. Getting back into our reading bag. So even though I wasn't reading as much as I would have liked last year, that didn't stop me from buying more books. So this year I'm telling myself, and I am asking you guys to hold me accountable and hold me to this, I'm not allowed to buy another book except for one until I finish all the physical books that I bought last year and haven't finished or opened yet. So let's go through all of those so you can see exactly what we're dealing with. We'll strategize and go from there. I'm gonna attempt to do rapid fire, and I'm gonna go by genre. So let's start with fantasy, because you know that's we love it here. So Immortal Dark, you just saw me buy this in Beacon. Haven't started it yet. Dark Academia, Black Vampires, What's Not to Love. I'm sure I'm gonna love it. Just haven't started it yet. So Immortal Dark, remember her? She's stunning. Remember her sprayed edges? You remember this. You remember this. The Eternal Ones by Namina Forna. It's the third and final book in the Gilded Ones trilogy. The first two are absolutely incredible. I reread the first two before getting to this one, just to remind myself what happened, and I'm very happy I did because it's a beautiful, incredible book. If you love fantasy, if you love African spirituality kind of influences, women empower gods, like, incredible. A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair and A Touch of Ruin. The first two in this series, I actually read the first one. I haven't read the second one yet, and I actually enjoyed the first one. It's a retelling of the story of Hades and Persephone, which now, after some new information, I'm pretty sure is problematic just because of their actual stories. But I have the second book, so I'm gonna read it. Beasts of Prey, and the second one, Beasts of Ruin. I started this and didn't finish it yet, so I'm definitely going to do that this year. Again, fantasy. If you can't tell, I love Black people and I love fantasy. What can I say? What can I say? So definitely have to read these two. I usually don't like the covers with people's faces on them, but these fantasy books tend to do that, and I'm not mad at it, so oh well. Empress Crowned in Red is the second book in the Witches Steeped in Gold series. This is the second one. She's thick, guys. She's a thick one. I think I was a little intimidated with this one, but I did love the first one. I will say that. So I think I just need to like rip the band-aid off and just be like, Tricia, stop being a baby and read it. So that's what I'm gonna do. But also the covers. I really like this book. The cover as well. It's really pretty. Look. It's giving bloody. It's giving war. Those were my fantasy. Let's kind of transition. Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. It's more sci-fi fiction vibe. I don't know why it took me a year to read this. I think because it takes place in this year. Starts off in this year, 2025, I believe. It's low-key prophetic to what is happening now. Post-climate change, apocalypse, economic crisis era. She wrote this back in like the 90s, I believe. And to have written it about this year and have it be so aligned with what's happening this year, like down to the fires that are happening in LA. This book is literally taking place in California, and there are fires. There are entire cities being burned down. The economic crisis is at an all-time high. Everything's corrupt and just going to shit, and that is literally this book. So if you kind of want a sneak peek of where we're headed, that's this book right here. And scary because of how real it feels, but it is also beautifully done. So finally read it. I think I might get the second one to read, but I heard the second one's even scarier because it's like the aftermath of everything that we're going through right now. So I'm not sure if I want to dive into that yet. I might want to continue my little escape route with my fantasy books for a little bit first, but Parable of the Sower, this is a really good one. It's the book on the taboo against knowing who you are. I think I like the cover, and I think I liked something about the blurb, so I bought it. But it's small, so I can do that. Women Who Run with Wolves. Everyone and their mom says that if you're a woman, then this is a book that you should read. So I bought it. I have it. I'm going to read it this year. Be Water, My Friend by Shannon Lee. The Teachings of Bruce Lee. It says through previously untold stories from her father's life and her own journey. I think it'll be interesting. It's different than what I usually read. And I've been trying to make myself read more books and stories by authors that are in my same genre, but also outside of it too, just to expand my knowledge in terms of like writing structure, why they use certain tools, why they made certain decisions in their writing to make you feel whatever they wanted to make you feel and how they went about it. Just to build my knowledge bank on writing and see how that will impact my own. So that. The Year of Letting Go, 365 Days Pursuing Emotional Freedom by R.H. Sin. I have one of his other books. I don't remember where it's at. It's somewhere on my shelf and I loved it. This one's more of it. Every day you get a quote, a passage, and you go through each day. So let's actually read today's. Today is January 11th, 111 portal. So this one says, sometimes sadness is the only way out. Painful is the path that leads to something better. We find the seeds of change in the world of sadness and carefully care for them until they grow into a better tomorrow. Period. And then we have The Creative Act, A Way of Being. I feel like a lot of creatives have this book by Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin, you've seen this book. I definitely started it. Just didn't get far. So I think I might do a few chapters a day with this one because the chapters are easy to get through. Then over to our more fiction. We have Before We Were Wicked by Eric Jerome Dickey. I got this book last year for Christmas and I haven't started it yet, but I'm definitely gonna read it this year. So I have This Is How We Lose the Time War. I have heard phenomenal things about this story and I started it twice now. And for some reason, I'm not super into it yet, but I'm going to finish it just because I feel like I might learn something from it. So that's why I'm gonna keep going. I know you can DNF. It took me a long time to accept that it's possible to DNF a book. No one has a gun to my head saying I can't DNF a book. DNF is do not finish. I have a hard time letting things go. So I only started DNFing books this year and I DNF'd like 5, which is huge for me because I would have just sacrificed my enjoyment and happiness and stuck it out to finish the book. I need to know how things end. But I'm getting pretty good at DNFing, but I think I will learn from this one. So I'm going to finish it. And then Homebodies, you guys saw me buy this at the beginning of last year, I believe, and she is untouched. So definitely will read this, Homebodies by Tembe Denton Hurst. Going to read that this year. Then, as you guys know, I finally read Poppy War and I finished it. This was fucking incredible. It's definitely fantasy. I don't even know the full historic context of this, but I think that's why I enjoyed it because I kind of feel like I was learning a lot. It's written so beautifully. I'm pretty sure the author was like 20 when she wrote this, which is insane to me. The language was beautiful. It was raw. It was passionate. There was so much rage. It kind of shows you how powerful and beautiful, but also destructive and harmful rage can be. And witnessing this character attempt to find that balance was a beautiful experience. And I'm excited to see what happens next. The pacing of this was nuts. I feel like we went through so much time in this book, which is why I think it felt so intense the entire time. Like so much happened. It crossed over so many years and it didn't feel like I was jumping or missing too much time in between, which I felt like that was done really well. And it was written in third person. If you know me, I'm an avid third person hater, or at least I was until this story. I used to hate reading in third person. I love to be inside the brain of the main character to know exactly what they're feeling. And I don't know, I didn't feel like I felt the same impact when reading third person versus reading first person, but I fully did with this one. And I also love that they jumped to a third person omniscient at one point. I like to jump into the head of another character, so I kind of got what I wanted, or I mean third person limited, so I kind of got what I wanted. And I'm very happy that this book did that for me because now it opens up a world of other stories for me in third person. Like I know Crescent City by Sarah J Maas is written in third person and I almost bought it, read the first page, so I was third person and put it back down. So now I can try again because now apparently I like third person when it's done right, and this was done impeccably. So those are all physical books that I have that I'm going to read before I buy another book. I'm not allowed to buy another book except Onyx Storm. If you know, you know. Onyx Storm is the third book in the Fourth Wing series, and Fourth Wing 1 and 2, in my personal opinion, were 5 stars. I loved both. I was hooked in the beginning of each one. I didn't want to put it down and haven't stopped since. So I'm doing currently my reread with Miranda. Rereading Fourth Wing, I started it last night. They're hefty chunkers, but they're so good. So I'm gonna reread Fourth Wing and already having a great time again. Go into Iron Flame, and then we'll probably start Onyx Storm in February. So I'm gonna start with these 2 as my rereads, and then we'll decide together where to go next in our big pile of books. So we have a big year ahead of us in terms of reading. My goal right now is set to, I think, 60. Let me see my Goodreads. Let's see. Yes, my goal for the year is 60. We're not doing 80 like last year. We're doing 60 this time. And I think we're gonna do it because we're already 3 books in. My first book of the year was Restore Me by J.L. Seegers. I've spoken about it before. I absolutely love that book. It is beautiful. It is heartbreaking. It covers grief beautifully, but also it's very raw. The emotions are very complex. You feel for both of their characters and understand why they maneuver their love for each other and their situation the way they do. It is absolutely beautiful. And if you love to read a story about a man who will literally be anything he can be, do anything he can just to get a sliver of attention from the girl that he wants, the woman that he wants, this is a story for you. Restore Me is it. okay? Sloan and Dom, chef's kiss, MMC, love him, down. So just finished that, then I finished Poppy War, and now I'm gonna go into Fourth Wing. So we have a big reading year ahead of us, but I'm excited to do it with you. Oh, and if you have any of these books in your TBR, if you have any suggestions for which book I should start first after my Fourth Wing reread, let me know. You guys can pick the book for me out of the ones that I have here, and I'll do the one that you choose. So yeah, it's a new year, but same lover of books. So not too much has changed on that front. We're just getting back into it, diving back into what makes me feel good, and that is really leaning into my creativity and allowing it to flow freely and fully, and that's kind of what's happening. So I'm excited to take you along with me on that journey, especially excited that I'm sharing my writing journey with you. If there's anything specific that you guys want to see in terms of writing journey, the reading journey, or anything that you would want to see more of coming into this year, please drop all that into the comments. DM me, hit me up. You guys already DM me, which is really sweet and nice, but like comment down below, let me know what else you want to see, what more you want to see of what I've spoken about here and beyond this video, and I'll be happy to create and bring whatever that you want that's aligned with me to us into this platform. So here's to a creative, multi-passionate, love, and peace-filled year. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.